Hi, students. Welcome. My name is Jess Boyce. I'm here from Baylor Undergraduate Admissions, and I'm joined by Bo White, who is the Director for Global Engagement and Study Abroad, and he's going to be talking to you today about the Global Scholars Program. So, Dr. White, take it away.
Well, hi, everybody on a Saturday where this is about as nice as weather as it gets in Waco today, which is completely irrelevant online, but it matters to us that live here. So we appreciate patience on that. I want to talk about, this is a new initiative for us that that's been in the works for a couple of years. And it's the Baylor, it's our Global Scholars Program. So as we go, I'm just going to ask that I'll try to deal with questions at the end for the last 10 minutes. So feel like you want to write them down or put them in the chat, but I'll probably try to get to them the last 10 minutes so I make sure that we cover some things. But the Global Scholars Program is one that is initially not just a way to start abroad. It's not just a first year abroad program, but it really is a cohesive way to do college differently. And we explain it this way, that Baylor is, it is a unique way to go through Baylor. You spend your first semester in Dublin, Ireland, and it really is meant to give you an international 4 years. And the way we're going to do that is that you're going to get specialized opportunities, and I'm the second bullet point here, for faculty interaction, research abroad, and support towards your postgraduate goals. And that might be whether you want to go to graduate school or you want to go when you're working in your career. We selected Dublin, Ireland for easy access in terms of language, but it's also a capital city with a lot going on. And again, it's given the current events that we have going around the last couple of years in terms of international travel, this is a pretty accessible place as well. So Baylor Global Scholars on this third bullet point will develop as global citizens with the skills and knowledge that I think, yes, you're going to thrive, but I also think you're going to set yourself apart. Little known fact that it's about roughly 9.5% of, that's 9.5, a little less than 10% of US students study abroad. So you're immediately, when you get to your next job interview post-college, this experience is going to set you apart immediately and to be something that looks very different than what a normal college experience may look like. So the first year in this fall semester, and here's the outline of it. This is probably an important slide if you have not seen this before, but its first semester is in Dublin, Ireland. You will have a Baylor faculty member who's on site. We also have done what we can to create some Baylor experiences. You have access to core classes, so you're not going to fall behind at all. And then you will spend your spring semester back here on the Waco campus. When you come back, your cohort will also have sort of a debrief session, and we build bridges back to Texas from Ireland. In this second year, you're going to meet and be both this combination of being assigned as well as locating your faculty mentor. The role of the mentor is going to really help you frame and massage and put together a research project that will lead to a second international experience your third year. You'll work on that project until you present it your fourth year. So what the entire sequence gives you is not just rich international experience, but in the research project, which will coincide with the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN put forth, which is you get to choose from sort of 14 categorical projects. You'll have the ability to actually have something tangible at the end. You'll be able to present thing that you've been working on. So it's this sort of rich combination of international experience and something to produce. And kind of like I said, it's a way to do college a little bit differently. So a few thoughts on Dublin and a little details on what actually is going to happen, and then we'll open it up for questions in a few minutes. Your first year will begin, again, like we said, in Dublin. It's an immersive semester that is framed around experiential learning, service, and engagement. Again, these are the benefits, but let me highlight a couple of things on this. The third bullet point, you get global experience on your resume, work towards your global engagement certificate, which is a credentialed part of your transcript and diploma. You can explore Ireland on 2 group trips that will be organized, and you join Baylor traditions that get set up while you're in Dublin, which may include chapel, Dr. Pepper Hour. We're going to have watch parties because of we recognize it's both football season, but also the chance to again bring Baylor to Ireland and Ireland to Baylor. The cost itself is going to be relatively similar, and we're going to start. The target is to start with a cohort around 25, I think, this first year. Again, because it's a cohort of 25, your class sizes are going to be small. You're going to know each other really quickly. So those of you are like, particularly those of you who may come to college saying, I'm coming to Baylor, I don't know that many people. This is a way you're going to immediately know several people. And this is a combination of coursework that's taught both by Baylor and Dublin Business School faculty. Again, all classes are going to contribute toward your degree plan. And that's both, that is important to us to make sure that that we've sort of thought through the idea that it's just not a separate experience that's unrelated and then you finish things. It really is an integrated sequence with what Baylor is offering. It is, you're housed in the residence hall that is within walking distance of a lot of what Dublin has to offer. So there's a sort of an urban feel to it, and 24/7 support from both our partners and student services that we have on the ground. The courses look like this. You'll be enrolled in at least in the following selections. This is global. That's what GBL stands for. 1101. And that's going to be focused on intercultural competence. That's before you leave. Religion 1310 will be offered. Irish life and culture class will be offered. And like we said, we have a faculty in residence that will offer some core classes as well. The cost itself will be the same as a semester at Baylor. In some respects, it may be cheaper for some, depends on the housing and or not housing. It depends on the amount of travel and what you spend sort of outside the classroom. Let me go to timeline really quick. What it means then is you have a summer orientation and line camp that happens before, where that registration, you get your ID card. And again, you're fully into what Baylor offers. You have a pre-launch orientation that is before departure. And at this orientation, we're going to talk about not just travel tips, packing lists, but you're going to meet your resident faculty as well. Depart for Dublin in late August, and then classes are going to begin in early September. So you see that there is some intentionality around the fact that you are going to meet your cohort, but you're also going to, the idea that you're also going to be taking part in what an ordinary or a normal Baylor orientation looks like as well. Classes will begin in early September, and you'll return back to the United States in mid-December in time for the Christmas break. And the reentry welcome weekend that I mentioned earlier happens in early January, back to classes starting in January 17th of 2023. So that's the quick overview. The thing that's a little bit different, obviously, is that coming to Waco to, again, get to know a lot of your cohort mates before going off to Ireland. Who's eligible to apply? You must be a newly admitted freshman to Baylor. You need to be 18 by August 15th. That's simply because of both the independence, but also the going to be difficult to have people sign off on things if you're abroad. And you need a valid passport by May 1st. We have passport offices we've been working with here in our Center for Global Engagement. We have seen some passports get expedited and only take a couple weeks, but some have taken longer. So that's sort of why we put that a little bit earlier in the timeline. That's also going to be important when you book your flight. Applications have been open since 2021 and have been on a rolling basis, and we still are entertaining. But if you have questions, the Global Scholars email is here. And I also want to stop and entertain any questions that you may have, because I recognize that there's that we go pretty quickly. Let me see if I can get out of sharing mode. All right, questions in the chat that we can take, because I want this to be sort of useful for your time as well.
Dr. White, our first question is, are you required to live in Dublin your first semester? I know you touched base on this, but would you mind clarifying for students who are wondering?
Yeah, it is. The whole thing takes place in Dublin. It is not meant to be where you take your classes there and go back and forth, and it's not meant to be sort of a virtual piped into Ireland. It really is meant to be an immersion and a unique cultural experience, and you do spend your first semester in Ireland.
Fantastic. Another question that we have is, how will Global Scholars impact the interactions with students at Baylor? How will it impact integration back onto the Waco campus?
Yeah, it's great. There's sort of two aspects to that, and that's a great question. It's the first part is you're going to, because you're with a cohort and you're coming back, there's definitely be introductions, and we're going to be very intentional in making sure that you're reintroduced to Waco, for that matter, and reintroduced to the culture and the climate of what goes on here in Waco. When you will obviously register for spring courses while you're in Ireland, and we will walk you through that the entire time. And the re-entry part is both going to be this, and we recognize that for some this is going to be a bit unusual, because the traditional path is just that you go off to college. What this is going to be is really a way to be a global citizen the entire 4 years. And so I think what we're also going to talk about when you come back to Waco is, what's the impact of that? What's the impact of what's happened there? And how can you take the lessons learned and these new cultural experiences and make Waco better? Waco isn't the largest city in the world. So sometimes we're wondering, how do we bring the world to Waco? And we've talked about exporting Waco to the world. So when people who spend the first semester in Ireland, we're hoping you bring these rich perspectives and this experience that you had this first semester back to campus as well. And I think that would be the initial part. Did I answer your question on that?
Yeah, that sounds great. And you mentioned that there's going to be Baylor faculty in Dublin with the students in different Baylor traditions. Can you elaborate a little more on that for the students?
Yeah, so the resident faculty member this fall will be Dr. Chuck McDaniel. He's been to St. Andrews. He's led different cohorts before. He's going to be teaching one of the core courses, I think in US Constitution would be one that's offered, and I know the religion course is offered. He's going to live there with you. He will be in resident the whole time, so you have access to Baylor faculty. He will advise you if you need someone to advise. We will also have a resident chaplain who is going to be there that will help chapel the religion class. So you will have, people who would normally be on campus at Baylor. So we're doing what we can to have this mix of Baylor people on site, and at the same time experience having Dublin faculty and Irish staff there to support.
Fantastic. Can you talk a little bit more about the activities that students will be able to participate in to maintain that global scholarship once at Baylor after their first semester in Dublin?
Yeah, so the global certificate allows you, so we have a lot of things on campus that could be range from anything to international missions to international film festivals. We have multicultural organizations. We have you may take place in service projects. You may just want to go to a lecture that is focused on an international topic. And all of those will count towards that certificate in global engagement. And other activities when you get back, particularly when you get assigned your faculty mentor, you're going to have this ability to sit down and work on okay, now what do I want to look at in a deeper way? And then start to think about what a different international experience would look like. This will bleed a little bit into study abroad, which is the idea that you can, if you go the international experience, your third year could be anything from a winter term course, which is for 2 weeks in between Christmas and New Year's, all the way up to another semester abroad if you want. And there would be nothing that prevents you from going right back to Ireland if you want to, if you feel like you've mastered, that's appealing, and you want to be, spend a chunk of time in a familiar place. But that also, right now, we currently have over 100 programs on 6 continents that are options for Baylor students to explore and to think about. And that might be something to consider building upon for your third year. So we think there's a lot of activity going on campus that will integrate with that certificate sequence, but also allows you to further expand on what you experienced the first semester.
That's awesome. Can you explain a little further how the Global Scholars Program works with the student's academic major?
Yeah, so the Global Scholars Program, because we're starting that first semester with core classes. So at Baylor, you have some core elements that you have to take regardless of whatever major you have. And so what we designed that first semester in such a way that the core classes you have to take anyway are the ones that are a lot of the focal points when you're there in your first semester. Having said that, you do have access to some electives at the Dublin School. What the Global Scholar Program overall is, regardless whatever major you are, that just means you're going to have an intentional research component to it, and you're going to have an intentional international component to it. So if you're a business major, you're going to have your major may be all, eventually you're going to take primarily business courses, but your research project then will probably be with a business faculty member, and your international experience, your third year, will probably be more business oriented. So if you were philosophy, pre-med, all of that would follow with that as well.
Fantastic. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that students have been thinking about in terms of what to do for their research project, maybe some ideas that they've had or explored?
Yeah, so because this is the launch, we don't have previous research projects to point to, but what we have is sustainable development goals out of the UN fall into 14 categories. And they range from anything from dealing with world poverty, hunger issues, climate change, to international development issues that might be water, sanitation, and sort of everything in between. So what we want students to do is to try to take one of these things that that seem like issues that will cut across borders, and that a lot of different nations are going to be dealing with, and honestly, that will be connected to what it means to be a global citizen. So to be aware that, that some of the issues that are faced in the US have a different camera angle on them than they do like in West Africa or in Southeast Asia. So yeah, we have hunger issues here in the US, but what does hunger look like in West Africa, and what does that look like in there? And this is an opportunity to explore that from a different perspective, as well as then take advantage of just a wealth of experience that you would have access to. So that research part is setting up 2 different things. It's not just trying to address a certain issue, but it's trying to get us to go a little bit deeper into some things that you might be interested in, and how we integrate that into your major is sort of the fun part. So if you're a business major, for example, tackling a poverty issue, I mean, that's going to be significant and a lot of fun to think through. That we think over time, the global scholars at Baylor then are going to get a reputation for not just graduating with international experience, but graduation with some, maybe some expertise to offer to some discussions that are going on.
That's awesome. Can you talk about how this might work for a student that's also interested in studying a language at Baylor and maybe wants to do a language immersion experience through the Global Scholars Program?
Yeah, that's a great question. there's nothing that prevents you from maybe one of the electives at this point, if we can offer a language when you're in Dublin, and then, but again, I think part of that is being really intentional with your advisor that what you want to do with your language is gain some of that experience, maybe your third year abroad when you go back. And then how you may integrate that into saying maybe you want your research to explore both an English perspective, but also maybe that that language immersion perspective. That really is sort of up to you in a lot of ways. There's obviously America is not known for people speaking multiple languages as much as Europeans. And so that starting in Europe, having those discussions, I think would be really interesting. And we hope that this sequence allows the language immersion to be encouraged along the way, because you're getting built-in space for continued international experience. So, I mean, language immersion is almost a separate topic and something we could spend a lot of time on, and it is, I think, important moving forward. But it's a great question.
Fantastic. All right, one final question for you, Dr. White. So with this Global Scholars Program, can you share with us a little more of the vision behind it and how it relates to Baylor's mission to educate men and women for worldwide leadership and service?
Yeah, the fun part about the question, that's exactly the point. I mean, that is exactly how this was birthed. Because our mission is worldwide leadership in service, where I think a lot of the discussions we're having internally is how do we build worldwide pathways so that worldwide doesn't mean just a US experience, but worldwide really means getting perspectives and experience from different vantage points. So starting your entire college experience abroad is one way to immediately take the Baylor vision and mission of being worldwide citizens, and immediately you're confronted with that from day one. And I think the other thing I think it does for Baylor, and how it integrates with all of what Baylor is trying to do is really the Christian vision part of it. It's one of the big privileges I've had of working in different settings around the world is if you start to attend churches and visit, Christian folks around the world, you also get different perspective on what it means to live with people who agree with you, but have a different vantage point from which all that happens. And it's a different, if it's an American vantage point versus let's take it something really small, like you're living in a city versus coming back to a smaller city like Waco too. By the way, Texas is not known for all its public transportation, right? So you get to start that way with Dublin and things you may have access to, and then come back to Waco in a lot of ways, bringing these again your experience and ideas to I think inform that worldwide vision and mission. And press it a little bit deeper. So what would other students who may not go abroad, what are they missing? And those are those discussions we want to have. So that's a great question, but in the question itself, that's exactly why the Global Scholars Program was launched. It is meant to go deeper and offer students a pathway that says, we really do take the worldwide part seriously, and we'd like to go deeper into that.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great way to wrap us up. Thank you so much, Dr. White, for everything you've shared about this program. Students, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to the Global Scholars Study Abroad or Center for Global Engagement department. They'd be happy to talk with you more about this program. I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to take this time to hop into your next session. Hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.